Good morning, everybody. Lara Joseph here, owner of the Animal Behavior Center. Happy Sunday morning for this episode of Coffee with the Critters. I'm going to start it by letting Molly out. Molly is the education lemur here for training from Indian Creek Zoo. Hang on, sweetie, I'm getting there. What do you think? Say good morning, Coffee with the Critters. So this is really hard to do with one hand. For those of you that don't know what the Animal Behavior Center is, we are an international educational center, and we teach people about animal behavior and training using positive reinforcement and applied behavior analysis. So the majority of our work that we do is online via live streaming. This is gonna fall. Ready? So you hear a little bit of a, there you go. Come on out, Molly. I wanna let her out for the whole program. So yeah, you can find out more about the work we do at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. Good morning, everybody. Eva, Janine, Diane, Carol, Nicole. Yeah, so this weekend, I am spending it with a special guest and friend, Deb Jones. So we're coming in here back into the center. Hi. So yeah, we're sitting here. There's Deb Jones.
Good morning.
Professional dog trainer and psychologist. Probably should have got a tripod so we could set up and watch this, but
now
hindsight.
about that. Nothing like planning ahead.
So,
right.
Let's see. Let me see if I can turn this around.
Okay.
Let me know how the sound is. If I turn around and I can prop it up here. Patricia Anderson says, Deb Jones, you look great.
Hi, Pat. How are you?
So let me know how this sounds, everybody.
Yeah, if they can hear us.
I'm trying to see. It looks a little fuzzy. Okay. Let's see. I'm just trying to get rid of that sun in the background. Hi. So how's that sound, guys? Pat, how does this sound? Hey, Ken.
Okay.
Stacy.
All right.
Sounds okay. So you guys
Sounds
can
okay.
hear. Okay, Karen says sounds great.
Excellent.
So we're just gonna
hang out.
Yeah.
Talk. Chat.
So we're just sitting here at the center. Deb, you've been here many times.
I guess so.
Probably 4,
It's becoming
5.
a habit now. It's like an addiction. Once you come once, then you just can't stop.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. You are a psychologist, professional dog trainer. I know you teach.
Right. I wear a lot of hats. So I've been training dogs for about 25 years. And actually did a little bit of training with horses.
Before you trained dogs?
Before I trained dogs, and right at the beginning when I was starting to learn how to train. I trained horse. I had a horse, and so I trained those a little bit. My one experience with the chicken, which was not the greatest experience in the world for those of you
that we talked about yesterday.
Yeah, for the people who love chickens, that's great, but I had trouble with my chicken. Didn't manage it really well, so. But I started out in behavioral psychology. So I learned about learning theory before I started training animals. So I learned the academic part of it first. Then I learned how to apply it to mainly dogs for these past 25 years or so, but a few other animals here or there.
With the intention of going into dog training, or?
No, just as a hobby. It started out, it was definitely just a hobby because I like animals. And horses were too expensive and too hard to manage over the long haul, so dogs were easy. And then I got involved in competition, obedience, and agility, and I enjoyed that with having some sort of a goal to train for, some sort of standard that you could look at and see whether your training was effective or not. Was I able to train these different behaviors? So did that for a long time and have been teaching almost since I started training, because 25 years ago nobody was doing positive reinforcement training. It was pretty grim.
Yeah.
Yeah. I came out of college and graduate school thinking we have all this knowledge about how all creatures learn. That applies really, really well. But what I saw, sorry dog trainers, but what I saw in traditional dog training was horrible. It was a lot of punishment, a lot of intimidation, coercion to get things done. So that was unpleasant, to say the least, for the dog. And it was unpleasant for the people, too. People didn't want to do that. They don't want to cause their dogs pain or fear. They wanted to do something.
I'm just trying to make it.
Was going to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
So when I saw this big difference between what I knew academically and what people out in the world were actually doing, I felt like I had to try to share that you could train animals to the same level with positive methods as people, getting better results even than people were getting with more forceful or unpleasant methods. So that's kind of where I started from.
Yeah.
And so because there was nobody else to teach it, I did it, not because I thought I knew a lot more than anybody, but because nobody was doing it. And so I felt like I had to get the word out there somehow.
So how were you welcomed?
Not great. There was a small group of people, and like-minded people, and this is like back in like the late 90s, probably about mid to late 90s, 95, 96,
Just
97.
the other day, right?
Yeah, we were talking about that last night. For Freddie and I, it's just the other day. For you were a child. But yeah, back at that point in time, there were some like-minded people in different parts of the country and world that felt the same way, but we were also scattered out. And luckily, this amazing thing called the internet happened. And I remember like getting email, and we had our first email group that was called Click L. It was a listserv.
Okay.
It was back in the day, and some names of people like Karen Pryor and Gary Wilkes and some others that were
on that listserv.
Starting back at that time, and we all were sort of inventing the wheel in our own little parts of the world as to how do you take this science and actually apply it to training animals. But then we realized there were others like us, so then we had a way to get together.
So the internet kind of brought you all together.
I think definitely. I think without the internet, we might have all stayed separate. And at that time, I believe Karen Pryor had written Don't Shoot the Dog, which was like the Bible of positive training, because it was the only book that addressed it. Yeah, the only book that addressed it in any way. Now, there are thousands of books out there about positive animal training. So you have much more choice, but back at the time you didn't. So it was a big deal. When we first all got together, there were a couple early conferences, kind of seminars that we got together at, and it was like a really big deal because there was only a handful of people that were pushing the idea that you could train pretty much any and all animals with positive training, because that was just not the belief. You know, people tell me every day it can't be done. People still tell me it can't be done.
Yeah, I was told, sorry, we're sitting in this huge room, and if you could tell,
we could get
Deb
closer.
and I are like sitting right next to each other, so we could continue to
We
talk
have no
like...
personal space needs. It's perfectly fine.
And I'm just trying to get rid of this glow behind you because it's...
Move it over to that side. Yeah.
Let's give this a shot. Let's try this, guys. Can you guys still hear us okay? Well, that might be better.
Okay, less glare.
Let us know if you can...
Okay, I'm sort of halfway in that.
There's usually like a 10-second delay. Lots of sun glare coming over your shoulders. Okay, well, we changed that.
Better? Yeah, let's see if that's
I should have just got a tripod. I have one, but you guys can hear fine. Everybody can hear fine. Good.
Yeah. It's, neither of us can see. We have to get right up on top of it to go, what are they saying?
Okay, Facebook, are you watching this?
All right. Well, yeah, we know what we're doing. We're professionals. We have this.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
Okay.
So with, sorry, I know this is like,
okay.
We're sitting here right on top of each other. You become a very good friend, Deb. Yep, so Deb and I have been in touch with each other for over probably 2 years.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I came to one of your workshops in June 2 years ago.
Yep.
And so that was the first time we met.
Yep.
But we became friends pretty quickly.
Yep.
And then I started sort of stalking you, and I kept coming back. And I'm like, she can't get rid of me now, because now here's a place where I can have some access to see a variety of different species being trained. Because it's one thing to say that you can do this with every animal you come across. But it's very much another thing to actually do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and people will often say, well, you can do this with any animal, which I say in my college classes, I say that all the time. This kind of training works on any animal that has a healthy functioning nervous system. That's the general rule. But then how do you apply it to all these very, very different types of animals? That's where it gets a little tricky, as we now know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I started the Animal Behavior Center, believe me, I know I could have easily called it the Avian Behavior Center. Because at that time I was working with primarily birds, but not limiting to, because I volunteered at a wildlife rehabilitation center, Nature's Nursery. So I was applying this to owls, hawks, coyotes, squirrels, bunnies, whatever was coming in the door. So that's where, that's when I was taking the master's classes in applied behavior analysis. And as I was studying, I was just saying, okay, let's try this on a turkey vulture. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see, and that's how. When I tell people build your list of reinforcers, that's not necessarily easy.
Not with an animal like a turkey vulture. your reinforcers are limited. And we're actually, those of us who are dog trainers are pretty lucky, because dogs are, in terms of how hard animals are to train, dogs are pretty darn easy. There's lots of things in the world that reinforce them. And one of the biggest, which I know you have with your animals as well, is attention. Relationship that you can build with them. But I think it's so hard to train an animal that you don't have a relationship with. And if you don't build that relationship first, what do they care about your attention?
Yes.
It's like, so you come or you go, big deal, I don't really care. You offer me food or not, I don't want what you have, maybe even. Oh. There's Rocky.
Rocky is very attached to Deb, so this is what Rocky does when he sees something he wants and he can't get to it. So,
which means that he might be ready to train it a little bit.
Yes.
Because he's interested.
Yes.
And that's the thing. It's like, if they're not interested in you, you have nothing really good to offer them. Why would they keep working for us? Why would they put forth the energy and the effort?
Yeah.
And so when you start to look at species where we normally don't have them in our homes living with us, that's what's fascinating to me. So what do you do? Where do you start trying to figure out how, the things that I can use as reliable reinforcers? Because our job is always like, well, how do I get this animal to want to work for me?
Right.
If they don't want to work with me, I've got nothing.
How do you create motivation with something that doesn't even care if you exist or not?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's hard enough with an animal like a dog, because sometimes what we're offering them is just not what they want. We think it's what they want. We think, okay, all dogs like this, like all dogs like to play, or all dogs like to tug. No, they don't. And if you're trying to use something that the dog isn't interested in, or the food that you're using is boring and they don't really, have an interest and they're not that hungry anyway, without the motivation, you've got nothing there to play with. And so when I see you, working with the turkey vulture, I'm like, okay, I don't think I could have a relationship with a turkey vulture.
I think you could.
But I think you are.
I think you could.
I never thought you could.
Yeah.
I would have sworn you cannot have a relationship with a turkey vulture.
Yeah.
That just doesn't seem right. But I see it.
Yeah.
So it can happen, but it takes how many years to build that?
Well, I know I've talked about this before, that a lot of times people will say, when you're working with these types of animals using the approaches that we're using, it takes a lot of patience. And I hear that all the time. And I'm like...
And I don't have patience. They always add in that. I don't have the patience.
Yeah. And I'm just like, you've trained it to be the way it is really well over the past couple years. Now we have to train something different. We have to counter condition a lot of behaviors.
Yeah.
And that's why I always say, if the animal can see, hear, or smell you, you're training it, whether you realize it or not. What are you training it to do?
Exactly. They're learning all the time.
Yeah.
They're constantly learning, and the main thing they're learning is how to get what they want. That's kind of everybody's goal in life. My goal too, get what I want out of life.
Yep.
So how do they get that? If you're a major part of that, then you've got something. If I'm kind of the central access to all their resources and the access to all their fun, then I've got something. But if I'm not that, I'm just furniture.
Yeah. So. And working with because I work with a lot of undomesticated
see that far.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
what are
we're
they
like,
saying?
"What?"
Sorry, there.
It's
Excellent.
Hey, Dr. McQuaid, good to see you. Good to have you on here. Hey, Mia. So a lot of times I'll say, I work with a lot of undomesticated animals, undomesticated exotic animals. So when, and this happened with Willie, the turkey vulture here from Nature's Nursery, this happens with a lot of the animals we were talking about at the zoo yesterday. When I first start working with them, I have no input into no value in their lives. So I'm building my list of reinforcers, collecting them, delivering for behaviors I want to see maintain or increase. And then I always say, and I see this happen so many times, Deb, in the beginning, several times you have to work with food because you have nothing else to work with. But over time, pretty soon, just the opportunity for that animal to engage with you becomes a reinforcer.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about yesterday at lunch, talking about this idea that animals want something to do. They don't like to be bored any more than humans do. If we were stuck, in solitary confinement 24/7, we would not be very pleasant, and we would work for the chance to do something interesting.
Yeah.
So we're giving them these opportunities to solve puzzles of some sort, and the puzzle is figure out what what will work to get reinforced. And so that enjoyment of cognitive activity, cognitive ability, they're starting to see now, I think more and more with all species, how smart they really are, how much they want to use their brains. They are not lazy. I mean, one of the things we say about humans is that they're cognitively lazy. We always take the shortcut. We want the easy way out. But that doesn't really seem to be true for many species.
Yeah.
We want something interesting and engaging and fun. Like, why do people do crossword puzzles? Why do people put puzzles together? It's self-reinforcing. And I think working with us, and us giving them something interesting to do makes them very, very happy when they figure that out.
Yeah.
They're
yeah.
like, ah.
And you'll see, we were talking about this yesterday.
He's on fire
It's because
today.
he's listening because he likes you, and he can sit here.
I'm hoping.
That's Rocky. So
Yeah, that's my boyfriend.
Him and Deb have a relationship. There's Quincy.
There's
have
Quincy.
a relationship together,
Hi, girl.
and he's sitting here staring at Deb and can't get to her. So let me know if that
Fine
is
by
too
me.
much.
No,
It's fine by
it's
me.
fine by me. And it's interesting because I somehow got this relationship with Rocky totally accidentally. I was kind of scared of birds when I first came here, so why did I come here? It makes no sense because I'm like, big birds are kind of freaking me out. Sorry for all of you bird lovers out there. But I did discover how smart they are. No, you can't have my child. That's not going to happen, Quincy, because I'm a resource guarder. I don't share my stuff. But it's funny that we did develop some relationship out of, I don't know what. But it's also interesting to me that it's almost too much sometimes for him.
Yeah.
And that he gets too excited about it. And then he can't work either. So there's this, what I guess we call it, in science we'd say it's the optimal level of arousal. You're interested, you're engaged with the person, you want to do things with them, but then if you get too high, then you can't think anymore, you can't think clearly, you make bad choices and decisions. And I think trying to find that level where they're interested and they want to work, but before they go over the edge. And I work with border collies, so I know over the edge really, really well. And so I think it's harder trying to figure out what keeps Rocky at that optimal level where he's comfortable, yet he's still engaged and interested without pushing him too far. And I think especially when you don't know the species very well, it's really easy to overwhelm them. And in dogs, we'd say you'd overface them. You'd put them in a situation where you're giving them too much sensory input of some sort. And I think that when that happens, learning can't happen anymore. So we have to watch that emotional response.
So learning can't happen anymore, and kind of like when using aversives to control behavior, creating that environment, the animal doesn't learn as fast.
Right, definitely. Because whenever stress gets in the way, that takes precedence over everything else. So the part of our brains, that controls stress and stress hormones, once that floods, the thoughtful, conscious thinking part of your brain takes second place. And so very little to no learning will happen. And that's really kind of the difference between operant and classical conditioning. We talk about learning emotions, learning behaviors, and skills. And they're always happening together, so they're all mixed up.
Yeah.
But classical conditioning or emotional states always override conscious learning. And so sometimes people don't even think about that. You don't think about
Which
how
is
the
really
animal feels.
important.
It's the most important thing. They don't think about how their animal feels while they're training them. They just look at whether or not the animal seems to be getting the behavior. And if they get the behavior, they're happy.
Yeah.
No.
The
trainer's happy, right. But the animal may not be happy at all. They may do it, but they may do it in the wrong emotional state. Because we don't want them to be overexcited any more than we want them to be in learned helplessness or simply anxious, and nervous. So we don't want our training to be connected with those emotional states. And that's something we're thinking about more and more, not what they do, but how they feel while they're doing it.
Yep.
That's much more important.
And a lot of times I say this, and I've said this, I'm just checking in with everybody.
I'll let you try to do the reading, because your eyes are younger than mine.
They're fading fast. But a lot of times people will hear me say that we were talking about this yesterday too, just because you're using positive reinforcement does not mean it's a positive experience for the animal. That is why I got into this field of work, is because I liked having that communication and having the animal. I wanted this for the enrichment for the animal. Yes. And sometimes I'll see myself training and I have to stay in check, because I'm like, is this animal even having fun anymore?
Yeah.
We were talking about this yesterday. So if not, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I continuing?
And we're typically doing it because we want to. We're getting to some goal and that makes us happy, whereas the animal could probably care less whether we reach, they definitely could care less whether or not we reach a training goal with them. Though a lot of the training we do is good for them in a lot of ways, that doesn't mean that we have the right to just kind of ride roughshod over them and say, we're going to work until we get this done.
Yeah.
Because we are teaching them a lot of unintended things along the way that we really probably don't want to code into the behavior.
Sure. And you can see that in the animal. You can see like when so after Deb and I are done with this, we're heading up to Indian Creek Zoo to see how
I'm excited about that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I'm going to show her how she got to listen a lot yesterday to the relationships I'm trying to build, struggling to building. So we're going to see firsthand how some of this stuff comes into play. What were we just talking about? Because I was going to say something about...
This is kind of typical, isn't it? Like, what were we talking about? I was thinking about enrichment. I don't know what you were talking about.
Yeah.
But I think it probably was along those lines.
Yeah. And I know that I can't cite them because they're upstairs in my office, but several studies will show that if you're working using positive reinforcement, studies are showing that it is the animal's preferred form of enrichment. That's why I do a lot of what I do.
Yeah.
I like to see and take the stress out of the animal's environment by incorporating choice and a sense of control back into the environment. And I do that through the type of training that I do and through tactile or visual enrichment, providing, as you can see here, we're all about...
all about enrichment.
We're all about enrichment because it gives choice and control back into a captive animal's lives. And nice job, Rico. So,
flying.
And also stagnant environment. I mean, enrichment can become stagnant very quickly. Even in training, like just doing the redundant thing over and over and over.
Yes, it can, and you don't even realize you're doing it a lot of times. We videotape a lot of our training.
Until your mom watches your recording.
The video tells you for sure what you're doing.
Yes.
Because we get into patterns and habits, and we don't vary or change things enough. Just to go back to the idea of choice, because that's been a big issue, something we've been thinking about. We just had our big dog training camp.
Nice job,
and
Rico.
More than one student said, you're talking about letting our dogs make choices all the time. All the instructors seem to talk about that, and it wasn't intentional. It just happened that way. That every time they would bring a dog out to train, it would be, let's wait until they're ready to work. Let them explore the environment. Let's not try to force them to go into work mode when they don't know what's going on around them and they're not comfortable.
Exactly.
So let them make a choice. And letting an animal make a choice means they might say no, which is terrifying. It's like, what if they don't want to work with me? Then I'll feel terrible. I mean, and I think trainers do feel terrible. What if your animal would rather sniff the ground for half an hour rather than work with you? Well, you might feel terrible, but it's telling you something important. That animal is feeling stressed and overloaded, and they can't do what you're asking them to do.
Because if you would...
Oh.
What you got, Pipsqueak?
He's trying very hard to get our attention here.
So I love cockatoos. But yeah, that's like, let them, because you'd want to bring them out and you want them working immediately. Exactly. Because this is what I want.
It's what I want. We're in front of a bunch of people. Everybody has like 10 minutes a time. So it's like, let's move it through really fast and get our dogs doing all of these things. But almost in every case of dogs that I worked with, at least, and I probably worked with 200 dogs over the course of the camp that we had, if you'd let them just acclimate a little bit, let them explore the environment without any pressure, and then they'll go, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
What do you want to do now? And they could work.
And that shows the trainer's true ability to communicate with that animal and identify reinforcers and start putting them to work.
Right.
Let the animal go, watch them, acclimate to their environment, identify reinforcers, and start delivering.
And then when you get to work, they're fine.
Yeah.
But if you deny them the opportunity to make that decision, they're constantly then trying to do it. They're trying to look away or disengage or sniff here every chance that they get. So by denying it, we're not doing ourselves any favors. We're not saving any time. Our animals have not said yes. They have said, I'm not ready.
And by denying it, you're probably training some undesired behaviors.
Oh, lots. And you're just making everything harder. That's the saying. My saying is, never train an unfocused dog. So if your dog isn't ready to work, don't try to train it.
Yeah.
And people do it constantly. I mean, it's like, I'm ready to train now, but they don't ask the dog, are you ready to train now? And I think it's true with any of these animals. Are you ready? Not, it's my schedule, I'm on it, it's time to go, let's do it. And especially when you feel like I only have so much time to get all this done, we start to put that pressure on them. But they have to make the choice, or we're never really going to have a good training relationship with them.
Yep.
That choice is the big key.
And I do a lot of live streams, and in my lives, we were talking about this last night after dinner, in my live streams, you will see mistakes made. You will see animals. This is not the way I had planned on it going, but that is life. That is how life works.
Exactly.
So I point out those situations. Like, last week I did a live stream, and I was asking an animal to do something, and it was like, nope, I really don't feel like doing that now. And I'm just like, okay, well, whatever.
There are times when you just go, okay, that's it. You've made that choice. And I think we have to not let them make the choice and then accept the answer and go and move on. It's like, okay, you don't want to do that now, fine. We'll move on to something else and come back later. Not, well, you don't want to do that, now you can't do anything.
Right.
It's kind of, I'll sort of punish you for not wanting to do it. I don't think that's really fair either. If we have the right relationship with them and if we have the right reinforcers, they're going to choose us.
Yeah.
So it's up to us to figure out, not to make them do it, but to figure out how to make them want to do it.
And that's when it's teamwork.
Yes.
It's working together.
Yes, exactly. And people never used to care whether the animal enjoyed the training or not. It's just that you got them to do it. So with dogs, it's obedience competition. And the really focusing on the obedience part, you do it because I said you will do it. That's the whole focus. Nobody cared if the dog was enjoying themselves while they were doing it. They were just expected to do it, and that was it. And the trainer was very happy with that. But we're so far beyond that now. I think with all animals, we're pretty far beyond that. Even when you get to things like husbandry work, that you have to do. When you have something, I really have to do this to my animal. I have to cut my dog's nails on a regular basis. Or like you say, talking about trimming the toenails and the beaks or whatever they do with the birds, whatever you do with those birds. He's still working it over there, looking very cute.
We're gonna have an environmental explosion again here pretty soon. That's what I call them.
Really?
So yeah, and we were talking yesterday. A lot of the work that hi. I'm training here daily, training at the zoo weekly. Hi. So a lot of what I'm training is husbandry behavior and vet prep.
Necessary.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot of time to train tricks because there's too many animals that need their hooves trimmed, that need their feet trimmed, that need, you know, the.
But the option typically was what? You just force them to do it in some way or the other. This has to be done, so we're going to all hold this animal, restrain it, and make it happen. And that's traumatic for everybody involved, repeatedly.
It's traumatic for everybody involved, and when you're working with a very ill animal that is being forced to do certain things, the stress level just compounds on top of itself.
Yes.
Whereas if that animal is sick, and if it was trained to accept all of these things, it would be, there may still be stress, but not near as much as what there is when it's forced.
Exactly. And granted, things have to be done when they have to be done. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have no choice. But that's why people work on it so proactively. It's like, if I can get all these husbandry behaviors, if I did nothing else with the dog, if you did those husbandry behaviors with your pet dog, or your cat, people think that you can't possibly do it with a cat, but if you did some of this work with your cat as well, then when the time came that it was absolutely necessary, it would be so much better for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so working on that, I don't think that's an option really. I think that's something that just, as a good owner, trainer, you should be working towards.
And if you want to practice, because I know a lot of people are out there wanting to do more, wanting to increase their relationship with their animal, but they don't know where to start. Start with the foot target, the beak target, the nose target, the butt target.
Targeting everything. Yeah, you never go wrong there. Also working on handling, being able to physically handle the dog, starting very lightly, or handle the animal, I should say. Starting very lightly, and then getting more and more pressure, intensity, being able to, at some point, I actually want to be able to manhandle my dogs. But I don't want them to think that's a bad thing. I want them to go ahead. Because when you do this, good stuff always happens. So being able to, pick up their legs, squeeze their feet, grab them and hug them, which dogs do not like hugs. But you can teach them that hugging is connected with lots of positive reinforcers.
Dogs don't like a lot of things. You'd be really surprised.
Yeah, they don't like to be hugged. They don't like you to get in their faces. And they don't really like to be patted on the head.
And you can tell by the behavior.
Yeah, but people keep doing it.
They pat on the head and the ears go down.
People keep doing it, and most dogs will just go away and go, that's okay, except for the ones that want to then bite you.
Right. They're very forgiving.
Yeah, they are very forgiving. But teaching them that all this stuff is good stuff, and it's 99% of the time connected with reinforcers. Then the 1% when something has to be done, like they have to be restrained at the vets, they're like, oh, I know what this is. I'm used to this. This is no big deal. And so you can get away with that then. But if you never do it, and then they go to the vet and a whole bunch of strange people grab them and restrain them, they're going to freak out. Yeah. And then try to get them into the vet the next time.
Right.
It's going to be impossible.
That's when the undesired behaviors are being reinforced and
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And the animal's helpless. They have no control. Again, back to control and choice. We work on our husbandry classes that we teach on. The animal always has a choice. They can always opt out. We set up tables where they can get on or get off. If you get on the table, we do the work. But if you want to get off, go ahead.
It's your choice.
Yeah, it's your choice. And within 2 or 3 days, animals will not get off the table.
Yeah.
And a lot of students have said, I walk in the room and my dog's standing on the table. It's like, that's what we want to see. They made a choice.
That's a clear line of communication.
Yeah, we give them the option to say no. But by giving them the option, then they don't want to say no anymore because the reinforcers come for saying yes. And they're very, very powerful reinforcers. So we can work up to a lot of things that way.
Yeah. And here we have, we work a lot of the mammals on the tables. The ramp is the cue. Boom. So we've got to hide the ramp. Otherwise, they're up there and we're not we're not ready.
Right.
We're not paying attention.
Well, we see that I'll have 2 or 3 dogs jockeying to be on the table and knocking each other off. If they think that the grooming kit comes out, that's their cue that things are happening. Because the table's always up in my living room. Everybody has a grooming table.
And isn't that a sign of a job well done?
Exactly. It's like we did well with this. We've
Yes.
got this done. But you also have to keep working it, because it will go away. You will get regression if you let it go. I was telling you about Star, my dog who doesn't like her left front leg touched.
Yep.
And I think she had a traumatic experience at the vet and had to have an IV in the leg, and they must have scared her and restrained her when they did it. Instead of sedating her first, they probably didn't. So doing the nails on that left front leg has always been difficult. She'll kind of let you but not, and then she'll get better and get worse. If I keep working on it, it gets a lot better. I can tell if I've let it go.
Yeah.
Because it comes back.
Yes.
So it's not like I can fix this. It's not like I can fix it, do it a couple times, and it'll be fine forever. It's going to be something that's going to require constant maintenance.
Yes.
It'd probably get better over time, but it's still not something that's ever going away.
Sure.
And so we have to keep that in mind.
And once an animal learns that aversive experience, and you can train these things to help at the vet's office, because the veterinarian doesn't have a lot of time. I think this is our responsibility to get our animals prepped for the vet.
Exactly.
But one very unpleasant experience can be such a major punisher of a positive punisher of future behavior, that all it takes is that one experience.
It certainly does, yeah. Especially if it's at the wrong time. There was an article going around Facebook just recently that I posted on my training page about what they call a second fear period in dogs, which usually comes somewhere in adolescence, and it usually is a huge surprise. You think your dog's pretty well grown up, and then they go into this, and one bad experience can really have a massive effect on them. So you do have to undo it, or go. You can't undo it, but you can train over it.
Yeah.
But
it's already learned it.
Mm-hmm. It's not going away.
Yeah.
We never forget what we learned. We can learn new things to counteract it, but we can't erase something. I guess drugs might, but we can't erase something, especially if it was a very strong emotional experience. It's always lurking under there. So that's why we have to continue to do the work. We can't just say, okay, my animal's trained, I'm done.
Right.
Because that's never the case.
And and it also depends on the history of the reinforcement for that undesired behavior. I mean, we work a lot here. A lot of the animals, but not all of them, have come from shelters. Not all of them. Hi. So I'm working with animals here that have a long history of reinforcement. That I don't know what it is. You can kind of tell what it is.
Yes.
But now, like with Rocky, I shouldn't have said his name. Because we're in a quiet period.
Yeah, it's very quiet right now.
But a lot of his behaviors, that was getting pretty sad there.
Yeah.
There you go. A lot of his behaviors are on a maintenance plan.
Mm-hmm.
They will never, some of these things I'm trying to get him to do other behaviors, because I'm working with an undesired behavior that's undesired because I can clearly see it's causing stress and anxiety in his life. Mm-hmm. Those will always be on a maintenance plan, probably for the rest of his life.
Yes.
They will never
Never go away. No, they
will never fully go away.
No, and that's just life. That's just
how
it is.
Yeah. And my eye is always on those distant antecedents, because there's antecedents there that's going to tell me this behavior is going to start. It's rearing its head.
Yes.
It's starting to rear its head. I've retrained something else years ago. I can't expect that to just stay with that animal.
Exactly.
So I watch for those distant antecedents and say, time to kick in, or
Yeah, and especially in times of stress or in times of change, that's normally when we see stuff that kicks back in that we thought was long gone. Again, it's never really gone. She went on the herd tour. There's a lot of maintenance constantly, but that's the nature of any living creature.
Sure.
They always change.
Behavior is nothing simple.
No.
It's one of the most complex things I think I've ever worked with.
It is, but that's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah.
That the idea to me that it's always changing, and that's something else that we say, like in my learning behavior class. Behavior never stays. Staying the same is the hard thing. Having consistency and doing the same thing the same way over and over and over again is almost impossible. It's very easy to drift in different directions with the behavior. If you think about like Olympic athletes, how long they train to do behaviors in exactly the same way, and that they can't. No matter how much work they do, variation creeps in, like at the Olympics when they don't want it to.
Yeah.
So they're very motivated, they're very well trained, they work really hard at it, and still they can't get 100% consistency. And so why would we expect our animals, once we've kind of halfway trained something, because we usually don't actually do it all that fully, and then we think, okay, this is fixed forever. Not even close. You know, we still have to go back and keep working on it. Doesn't mean that what we're doing doesn't work. It just means that it's going to constantly need to be kept an eye on.
Yeah.
And keep a look at. And so people will go, okay, well, wouldn't punishment be faster? What if I just punish the animal for this behavior? What you get is that immediate suppression. They will probably stop what they were doing
Which
in
is
that
usually
moment.
our reinforcer.
And then we go, yes, yeah, look at me. I'm such a good trainer. Now my animal's not doing that anymore. But the fallout that comes along with that is huge. And you haven't taught them what to do instead. You can't leave a vacuum there. You can't leave a hole where there was a behavior. If there was a behavior there, you've got to replace it with another one.
Yeah.
And I think you do a lot of that. You look at alternative behaviors that the cockatoos in particular can do. What can they do instead of this thing that I don't want them to? Because that's going to get them into trouble. So instead of, I know with Rico you were doing, he was flying, you always reinforce him for flying and for playing with his toys and doing things like that, as opposed to the undesirable things he might be doing.
Well, and attention is a major reinforcer, which is good. And it causes, yeah.
If we can control what we're doing with
right.
it.
So attention is, I always say, from what I can see, is the number one reason animals lose their home.
Okay.
Improperly delivering attention for behaviors is a primary reason
it's
for
hard
animals.
not to.
Yeah.
When a bird's screaming at you, it's hard not to look and go, what?
Yeah.
It's like almost impossible, but you can see how that, if it works and it keeps working to get your attention,
works for the animal.
It sure does.
Yeah. And that's why you were talking about the flying. This is what we've done with our ICO.
Oh. We're not allowed to say names, apparently. We must spell.
No, we can say names, but you're just not going to hear us for too much longer because attention is a major reinforcer.
Exactly. I'm being watched.
He's been sitting here on this perch staring at us pretty much the whole time. He has a history of he'll go and sit there and scream, and he can get so loud you won't even be able to hear us. So instead, I've taught him something else to do. We taught him to TOSS. I can't say it because he's going to start doing it.
Do it. Then you have to go reinforce it. Yeah.
Well, pretty soon I'm going to teach him how to spell because you see him look at, did you say toss? But so instead, he flies to the bottom and tosses a toy. Hi, Rocky, to get the attention versus the scream.
Yeah, which is a much better option. But then again, you have to remember to pay attention to it regularly and not take that for granted.
Yeah.
Oh, well, now he's doing this. I don't have to pay attention to it anymore. Because that'll disappear in pretty much no time.
They're going to go back to what works. And they'll go back to the scream. And if you turn around on that scream, bam, you've just delivered an intermediate
but
reinforcement.
how difficult is it to not? Because I find every time they make a noise, I'm like, I want to look, and I'm like, don't say anything. Just kind of try to ignore it.
Well, with him, just the eye contact. And like he'll come up here in between these bends and he'll stare at you and he'll start screaming. And if you just glance, you can see him look and you're like, oh man, I just
reinforced that
it.
very thing.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's so strong in any social animal, any animal that cares about interaction with others. So I guess if an animal was truly solitary, then attention could be an aversive instead of or a punisher instead of a reinforcer. If you had an animal that doesn't want your attention, and sometimes I've heard of animals that are like that, or that attention has been followed by punishment, then that's a bad thing. So then you get yourself into a lot of trouble there.
Yeah, and you've touched on something really important. Working with the animal, are they social animals or solitary animals?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be that's going to play a major factor in how you approach.
Dog, cat. The difference between a dog and a cat, I think to a great extent, dogs in general, by nature, tend to be more social creatures. Cats tend to be more solitary. That certainly doesn't mean a solitary animal can't form a relationship, but I think you're gonna have to work harder to get that to happen. You don't have that innate tendency in there, or that, for many it's a need, because if these animals are isolated, they're miserable when they're social animals.
Yes. And like the parrots, most of them are very social animals.
Oh, yeah.
And you see, they have each other here, but in the wild, some of these would be flocking in groups of 40 to 500.
Yeah, and so when you hear about one living in an apartment, you think, how lonely. I think that even with people who have a single dog, I tend to think that a little bit too.
Yep.
It's like, because unless you're going to spend an enormous amount of time with that animal, you're really putting them in solitary confinement. And I don't think they like that a lot. I don't think that's something that's really good for them, that makes them happy. They really have this need for others. Most of them, again. And then it's just like people. Some people are very social. Some people, even though we are apparently social creatures, are more solitary.
Yep.
By nature.
We were talking yesterday about working with social creatures that form strong bonds to one person. Hi.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting area.
In my experience, working with an animal that's extremely bonded to one person. The hard part is not getting that animal to interact with somebody else. The hard part is now to keep that balance once you have it.
Because they want to just move from one person to the next person. And so that would be hard. And we were talking about this idea of sometimes animal behavior modification is a bit of marriage counseling. Because if you have a couple, say, and they're having an issue with their animal, there's a lot of other stuff thrown in besides the behavior that the animal is doing. There are lots of emotional issues on the part of the people, and many people, all of us that love animals love the feeling of a relationship with them and like a strong relationship, and it's reinforcing to us. And so there's probably something in there of the animal only loves me that is very powerful to humans. And so it's hard to say, don't love only me, go love other people. That's not natural to us. We're pretty selfish about those kinds of things. So you might say you want the animal to have a good relationship with your significant other, but do you really want to do that? Or you really want to give up that really strong individual relationship you have? And I think you see that a lot of times when people are single and they get an animal, and then they decide to get married or live with somebody, and it changes everything about those relationships. So I think that can be very, very difficult for the people, almost more than for the animal sometimes. The animal might adjust. The people have a harder time letting go of that.
And when creating that super strong bond with that one animal, it may make you feel good. You know what I mean? What's the future of the animal?
Yeah.
Because their choices are more limited than our choices.
Exactly. They don't have any options. If I'm the only one available, they will bond to you if you're not a complete idiot. Well, even if you are, and that's the good thing about animals, they don't care if you're a complete idiot, they'll still love you. That's why we like them.
That's why we get along so well with animals.
Exactly. They're so much easier than humans in so many ways.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very true. But there's lots of interesting relationship issues. I used to always say that I wanted my dogs to basically become addicted to me, to feel like I was the best possible thing. And if you're an individual training a dog for performance competition types of events, that's my goal to a point. But I also don't want an animal that can't survive without me, or that can't be left for the weekend with somebody else and will be miserable when I'm gone. So they have to have a bigger social circle, I think, than just us. If we keep them isolated and it's just me and nobody else, that doesn't work any better than keeping them isolated from others of their own kind. So keeping dogs isolated from other dogs, because I only want them to bond to me and I only want them to work for me. I think we're doing them a big disservice when we do things like that to them in the name of training. And I know people, lots of people, who have done that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's really fair to the animal to do that.
I agree. I agree 110%. Well, I know we're coming up. There's been, hey Chris, I know we're coming up on an hour.
Oh my
I told
gosh.
you this would fly. It
Oh
flies.
my gosh, how did that happen?
I told Deb last night when we were in
We
talking.
can't fill up a whole hour. That's not going to happen.
I said it's going to happen.
You didn't even tell me
really.
it was going to be a whole hour. I
Yep.
thought it was going to be like 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's hard to keep it at 15 minutes.
Okay.
But I told
Yeah.
Deb last night, I said these live streams go fast.
They do.
And I told her, I said, and I talk a lot. And you said, really?
I never noticed that about you at all. Laura's so quiet. Yeah.
But
But apparently I do when I start talking about animals.
Well-
Then I talk a lot.
me too.
Yeah.
I think we are both obviously very passionate about what we do.
Yeah, I would agree there.
Yep.
That's why we're friends.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
'cause we love this stuff.
And I look forward to many more training interactions. But we are going to, before we wrap it up, we're going to head up to the zoo. We're going to finish feeding all the animals here. Like something's going on. I can
Oh,
tell.
yeah.
The dog and the bird. See, that's body language.
Yeah, well, I couldn't even tell that.
And
He's
can
got
you-
his crest way up in the air. Is that a crest?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yep.
Well, he's
So-
got his big, yeah.
And you see feather
can see
placement
that.
went choop, really
Yeah.
tight. Eyeballs change
So
shape.
something's definitely happening.
So it's
I'm always
contextual,
asking
too.
Laura to explain what the birds are thinking. It's like, what does that mean? When you see that behavior, what does this mean? So she's constantly telling me, this is likely to mean this. I know
Yeah.
what Quincy's behavior means. Something's going on. And you guys need to pay attention to it. I can get that.
Yeah.
It's the birds that
She's
are...
communicating, so I didn't
She
try
is,
to
good
punish
girl.
that behavior of barking because she's telling me something is going on.
She's
And
very clear.
all I do is check in with her and say, got it, thank you very much. And when I do that, she will usually, she's just trying to let me know something is happening.
Yes.
And I am telling her, got it, thank you for that communication, appreciate it. So Deb and I, before before we end, Deb's got some things coming up, and we're gonna go train at the zoo after we finish some work around here. But tell me about some things
Okay.
you have going on.
Basically, the main thing that I work on now and where I do 99% of my dog training is online, which I love. It's for Fenzi Dog Training Academy. So if you look it up, we can probably put the link on in the comments. If
we'll put the
anybody's
link in the
interested.
comments.
Fenzi Dog Sports Academy. We have a variety of instructors who are all excellent at what they do. Everybody who works there is focused on positive reinforcement training. And respect for the animals, along with respect for the trainer. Okay, sometimes other dog trainers make you feel stupid, make you feel like you don't know what you're doing. We never do that. We believe in being very kind to humans as well as to animals in the process of you learning how to train your animal.
And that shows to me that you truly know what you're doing. Because you're treating the people, it's
Right.
all about the respect for...
Exactly. And it's hard to learn something for somebody when you're defensive or when you feel like they're judging you or, they think you're stupid. You certainly don't learn from them then. So we don't treat students like that at all. We treat all students with the same respect that we want, and we treat all dogs that way as well. So we have a variety of classes at a variety of levels of training, everything from very basic fundamentals clear up to, getting ready to get in the ring for performance. We go into different sports like obedience and agility. I think they're adding a class on frisbee for disc dogs is coming up. So always trying some new classes, see how they go. So I'm teaching there. You can look us up. You can look up all the different instructors. We have classes that start the first of every other month. So we're winding up classes now. They'll start again the 1st of August, and we run every six sessions a year. So the 1st of every other month, they run for 6 weeks. I would not, when we first started, I was not 100% certain how this was going to work with online training, because I kind of had this idea, if I can't put my hands on the dog, I can't train, but it's turned out to be totally not the case.
Yeah.
Very effective, much more so than going to a once-a-week class, where how much time do you get with the instructor? You know, maybe they look at you for 5 minutes in that hour, and then your dog's learning a lot of undesired things the rest of the time you're there.
Right.
And it's very stressful sometimes for both the dogs and the humans to go to in-person classes. So this is perfect. You can do everything at home. I think it's turned out to be much more effective than I ever would have thought when we started doing it.
I think it's great.
I love it.
I've turned almost 99.9% of my services are online, where I'm doing consultations in your home via live streaming. We have the membership program here, which includes the live streaming. We've got something getting ready to come up. That's getting ready to happen, and it's all via live streaming. I was talking to Deb about it last night.
Yeah.
But I like the live streaming because I was telling Deb, when I walk into your home, your animal's going to act completely different.
It's very true.
And I prefer to not walk in your home. I prefer to see what's going on through the camera.
Yeah, I think, and you can tell a lot by a 2-minute video from somebody. It's amazing how much you can see, the detailed feedback that you can give people when you see what they're really doing. So I think it's just amazingly effective. Plus, then we get to have the effect on people in such a wide area all over the world. Whereas we're very limited by geography if we're just teaching in-person classes.
Empower through choices.
Yeah.
Now your choices have opened up to the world.
Exactly. It's really amazing. I'm stunned. We have a lot of students from Australia. Hi, Australians, if you're out there. For example, great students, by the way. Very nice people. But we have them from Europe, from all over the world. I've had some from Asia. For some reason, I've had more than my share of students from France. I don't know why that is, but we're starting to spread out and see people from all over the place. You could never do that in the past. So again, the power of the internet.
Absolutely.
Like I said at the beginning, even more powerful.
In our membership program, we have a lot of people from the UK, Ukraine, Mexico, a lot of Canada, a lot of people from Canada.
Those Canadians.
Hi, neighbors.
Exactly. Those very friendly Canadians, yes.
So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this session of Coffee with the Critters. 57 minutes and 3 seconds.
Wow, look at us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if people want to reach you, Deb, where do they go to reach the work you do?
They can reach me through Fenzi Dog Sports Academy, and I'll put the link in the comments so that they can go to it. If you look at instructors, you can go to my bio, and then you can actually email me if they want to do that. They can reach me by Facebook. Of course, there's a lot of Deb Joneses out there.
Yeah.
Just
I can
a
imagine.
few. I'm trying to think. I don't remember what my profile picture is right now, so I can't tell you what to look for there.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what your profile picture
what is my
right
profile picture? I don't know anymore. But what is my profile picture is a whole bunch of instructors standing at Purina Farms. Yeah. So if you see like 8 people standing around a sign that says Purina Farms, you're on the right Deb Jones. And if you're an animal trainer and you want to friend me, I'd be happy to friend you. I also have a page on Facebook called Deb Jones Dog Training. If you like that, then I put up usually posts and good articles, things that are educational there. It's not real busy, but that's another way to get a hold of me.
Yep.
Okay?
So, thanks for joining us for another session of Coffee with the Critters with the awesome Deb Jones.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. We're going to head out here shortly, so maybe we'll post some pictures of some training we're going to do today.
Fun.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Looking forward to this.
So those of you that know it, you are very welcome. You can always follow our work here at the Animal Behavior Center at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. And hey, there's my sister Sheila that lives by you.
Oh, okay. Hi. You live down the street from me, Sheila.
Yep.
Small world.
So I'll be uploading this. Deb and I will be checking the comment sections, and we'll reply because we know we got a lot of comments.
Cool.
And we'll put Deb's.
I'll put that link in the comments if anybody wants to go just take a look and see what you can see there.
Yep, and I'll even upload this to our next email newsletter through the animalbehaviorcenter.com. All right. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Everybody's saying well done. All right, guys, we're off to train the world.
Bye.